It all started over 100 years ago when a wealthy but unhealthy soda fountain company owner looked to retire and open a resort in the Mid-South.
James Walker Tufts founded the Village of Pinehurst after he retired, and upon his retirement, he sold his portion of the American Soda Fountain Company for $700,000, which is a lot of money now. It was a lot of money then. And he had had a lifelong dream of having a health spa, a sort of a philanthropic endeavor.
Tufts knew there was a large need to help treat people in the Northeast dealing with consumption. Before he launched his bid to create Pinehurst, the sick were heading to Florida to rest and consume the abundant sunshine needed to recover.
He came here, bought 6,000 acres for an average of about $1.25 an acre, and decided to build his home, or his town. And it was modeled after a New England village, so it was always called a village, and it was meant to be a health spa. And into the second season or so, they discovered that consumption was actually tuberculosis, and it was contagious. So prior to that, he had written all the doctors and everybody up north and said, send your consumptives to us. So they immediately had to turn around and say, no consumptives are allowed. And guests who came immediately after that had to bring a health certificate that said that they were non-consumptive.
Since the sick were no longer welcome in his village, Tufts began inviting his wealthy friends to come and enjoy the new resort. Since the new guests were wealthy and healthy, the resort needed to offer plenty of activities for them to enjoy.
North Carolina was free-range country and game was plentiful, so they had a gun club. They played a roque, which is a version of sort of like a croquet with a short-handled mallet. They had horseback riding. They had a deer park with tame deer and pheasants and hares, all that sort of stuff. And so there was lots of recreation going on, and people began bringing golf balls and golf clubs right away.
So golf was being played, but not on the now famous courses. The original golf here was played in the cow pastures.
They were playing golf in the dairy pasture. And of course, they needed milk and butter and cream to feed the guests. And when the manager of the dairy came to James Walker Tufts and said, I think this golf is affecting milk production, they talked about building a course, and he was advised by some of his friends that it was a passing fancy. But he went ahead and decided to build a 9-hole course. And then the next year they built 9 more holes because people said it takes too long to golf.
Tufts invited Donald Ross to design, develop, and build the first courses. Ross lived in the village as well and was the head professional at the resort. Now you can still see the genius behind Ross's architecture at the Tufts archives.
A lot of people don't realize, they know Donald Ross was here, but they don't realize that we have his original drawings. We have the actual drawings that he made for several hundred of his courses. We've got them all scanned in there in books, and they can look at them. We've got them online in a virtual exhibit on our webpage. But people don't realize that we actually have that. We have a set of golf clubs that he made for his daughter. We have his sterling silver scorekeeper and just things like that. People don't realize that you can actually see things that belonged to Donald Ross.
As you explore the history in the Tufts archives, you may notice a green book on the shelf which gives current visitors to the village a walking history tour of James Walker Tufts' landmark town.
What we feature in this book is we have before and after pictures. A lot of these, of course, are pre-Hemmer. They were taken by other photographers, but we can show the original picture and we have the present day picture. And it's amazing how close they still look.
32 of the original 38 cottages built are still standing. Everything in this village is within walking distance, which is part of the reason for the walking tour book. But the compact design was intentional by Tufts as well.
And that was all part of the theory. To get well from the consumption, you needed fresh air, sunshine, and exercise. And the Holly Inn was built in the shape of an H, and every room had windows that you could open and get the fresh air and sunshine. All the cottages had porches, long porches along the front or back or the sides even, so that people could sit outside and take in the fresh air. And they also thought that the pine trees gave off ozone, which they were pretty close actually, and they thought that helped with their respiratory ailments.
The original look of the cottages, the golf course, the department store, and other buildings in the village are preserved in pictures, thanks to the Tufts family hiring professional photographer John Hemmer. Hemmer took photos of everyday life at the village and worked for the Tufts family for over 40 years. The Tufts Archives still owns the over 80,000 photos in the collection, and it was not just the photos that the Tufts held onto in their collection.
And what we have, too, are all the documents from the Tufts family. They saved everything. And, of course, you go back, it's a time when everything was written and everything was kept. And we have ledgers from the hotels. We have personal letters from the Tufts family members to each other.
With every picture, document, and memory of the new historic town, it's hard to realize that Tufts had the vision to transform this barren land into the ideal village in only 6 months.
He bought the land, he went to Olmsted, Warren Manning came down here and he said, let's make this look like what I want it to be. And there wasn't anything here. It was in the middle of the Carolina desert, the pine barrens, and the trees had been logged, or the turpentine industry had stripped them of their bark and they died, so it was sand and scrub oaks. And he looked at it and said, this can be my beautiful village.